we'll be using a rolled blanket, a rolled sticky mat, something that you can anchor your back foot in, something we've been working on so that we can get the soleus and calf muscle to stretch a little bit. But first, let's start lying down on our back. So as you lie down with your knees bent, just pause here for a moment. Allow your in breath and your out breath to help you really expand the ribs, expand in the area of the heart. And now we'll do an upside down squat. So for those of us that find squats really difficult, the way to start our practice could be a simple squat on your back. So bend your knees or with your knees hugging in toward your heart. Just draw the knees in and notice the more you draw your knees in, the more your tailbone lifts up. Quite a pelvic tuck there. So just allow the fullness of your breath to just kind of bring awareness to this form. Now let's see if we can untuck the pelvis here by drawing the knees away from the chest, then you get a nice curve in the lumbar spine. You're still in the squat position, but now you're more toward anatomic neutral of the spine. So have the toes active, have the feet in this dorsiflexion sort of mode. So the legs are active. And now, just to protect that lumbar curve, you're pushing the knees into the palms of the hands. And the palms of the hands are pulling the knees back. So, this is the squat that you can practice just to allow yourself to get a little bit more opening of the pelvis. Certainly, a nice supported squat pose here. Now come back to release your feet to the mat and just pause there. Lift your arms up over your head, another pause there. Draw over to the side, another pause there. And come up to all fours position. So as you come to all fours position, come to another variation of a squat by coming to child's pose. And there are several versions of child's pose, as you know. You can take your hands so they're reaching back toward your feet. And I always prefer the hands forward because it rather than dropping, we call it shoulders off the back. With the hands back, shoulders come off the back, and that increases that kyphotic curve that we're just naturally drawn to as we mature. But see about taking your hands forward, reaching your pelvis back. Now, if your pelvis does not go back to your heels, no worries. But see if you can line up your ears with your arms and draw your pelvis back. Now, chances are, just like when we were on our back, you're doing a lot of pelvic tucking here, right? The low back is really rounding. So let's come away from that. So as you walk your hands forward, your pelvis will lift up a little bit. Now, see if you can do that same pose without tucking the tailbone. So see if you can get more of a natural curve to the spine and draw your pelvis back. So you're in the same downward face, or sorry, child's pose position, but not this rounding of the low back area. Reach your fingers forward with your hands nice and wide apart, with your pelvis reaching back, with your ears and your upper arms lined up nicely. So this is a pretty by comparison, pretty dynamic child's pose, right? We're trying to work the muscles really nicely and to get a little bit more of a curve there in the low back. By pressing the hands firmly, lifting your shoulders up, drawing your heart toward the mat, you keep the upper body very active as you draw the pelvis back. You start to see the connections. And in yoga, this connection to the pelvic area is a very important connection. Come back now to all fours position and make your way to standing. Can be through downward facing dog or however it works for you. So as you come to standing position, rise up and grab a towel or a rolled sticky mat. Well, just get the back side of the legs to work a little bit better. And just have it to the side for now. We'll be coming to a lunge pose and then virabhadrasana number 1 to get the back side of the leg a little bit more active. So from where you're at, maybe toward the back of the mat, place your hands at your hips and step your right foot forward. So as if your back heel is pressing down into the blanket or the rolled towel, press down firmly before bending your knee. And keep your back heel planted nicely. Inhale, reach your arms up and take your hands wide apart. Spread your fingers. Take your hands even wider apart to open your heart nicely. Now exhale, release your hands, keep your back heel parked, and it's more of a balance pose. As you straighten the front leg, just take the hands to the low back and draw your heart forward. Keep your back heel pressing down as you just draw into the forward fold. Inhale, rise up very slowly, spread your wings, and just kind of notice the connection as you draw your heel very firmly into the earth. You go a little bit deeper in your virabhadrasana 1 pose. And as you straighten your leg and take your hands behind your back, you keep that steadiness of the back heel as you draw down. If you feel a little tipsy in this, go wider in your stance. And inhale, keep that connection with the back foot to inhale. Rise up and notice how that connection allows you to open the chest so fully. You feel this nice receptivity to the upper body as you stay committed to the back heel. Release your hands and lower yourself into parsvottanasana, or this variation of the pose. And inhale, root down to rise up. So that action just gets soleus muscle, the muscle right between the gastrocnemius, right in the middle of the calf here, to get nice length. Let's try it on the other side. So draw your back heel down, step the opposite foot forward, keeping that. And you might notice that this side is just slightly different. You might have a different stance, maybe wider or a shorter distance between the feet, but keep the back heel down as you bend the front knee. Keep the back heel down. A lot of dorsiflexion of the back foot. Inhale, reach your arms up. Have your hands nice and wide apart as you open the chest. Exhale, straighten the leg and slowly draw your heart forward. Keep your back heel rooted. Draw down. And again, inhale, bend the knee, keep your back heel rooted. And notice also, if you're so focused on the back heel, you forget about the other 2 points, the base of the big toe and the baby toe in the back foot. So keep them rooted. as you now come to a straight leg, parsvottanasana, draw down. And inhale, root down, bend your knee, rise up, lift your arms up, keep your back heel planted, open your heart fully, and exhale, release your hands down. You're scissoring the legs in toward each other. And from that connection of very powerful legs, you're able to feel this like receptivity, this openness of the upper body. And inhale, lift yourself up. Exhale, release your hands. Now come to all fours position again. In all fours position, same thing. Tuck your toes under. Tuck your toes under and just draw your pelvis back. So as if you're going into child's pose here. Notice that sometimes the heels want to travel away from each other when you do that. Keep that connection. Keep hugging into the midline as you draw your pelvis back. Now, at some point, you will feel a rounding of the low back. So see if you can just kind of calibrate your moves so that you keep the natural curves as much as possible without doing too much pelvic tilt as you reach back. Notice if one foot is feeling it more than the other. How can you balance that action while still pulling the feet in toward the midline, while still keeping the shoulder blades lifted? Soften the upper body as you keep a dynamic action in the feet. From here, come up to all fours position again. Press down through the hands. Lift your knees up off the mat. So work your feet a lot. Take your pelvis back. Keep your knees bent. Keep on pressing through the base of the big toes. Lift your pelvis so that you get this nice curve, and very slowly start to straighten one leg. Keep the other knee bent. Now bend that knee and straighten the other leg. Now bend that knee a whole bunch. Bend both knees as you walk your hands back and you come toward a squat position. Now, your squat position can look just halfway down, or you can take it all the way down. Just find out what squat position works best for you. And we've had enough time in that, so walk your hands forward. Take your feet nice and wide apart as your mat is. Begin to straighten your legs. And as you work the right heel down, press your left hand very firmly so that you kind of got this diagonal action going. From the left hand pressing down firmly, you get the right heel to press down. Now, from the opposite, from the right hand, get your left heel to be more active. So it's like this X pattern of energy in your body, really pressing down. Now, with your feet nice and wide apart, turn your toes just slightly out. Walk your hands back to your feet. Come down to a squat position. And again, whatever version of the squat position it is that you can come to. So you want to just kind of protect your knees, but you just kind of work yourself so that you can open the pelvic floor really nicely. Walk your hands forward again. Have your feet now parallel and hip distance apart to one another. Look forward and walk, step, or hop your way to the very front of the mat. Place your hands to the low back with your elbows hugging in. Then lift yourself up. Just pause. Reflect. Breathe in and out. And as you just pause, it's a nice opportunity to find those connections. So, in your daily life, you have lots of opportunities to practice the squat. As you just come to sit in a chair, that gives you another opportunity. So you can open your eyes, and if you'd like to bring a chair to test this out, please do. Imagine that you're about to sit in a chair. And have you ever noticed that some people just kind of plop themselves into a chair? When I used to teach chair yoga, every chair yoga class I taught this getting into a chair and getting out of a chair because I noticed that people were using their arms so much, not their legs. They were kind of pushing off with their arms, not really working their toes to get a good groundedness. And when they went into the chair, they just kind of fell into this chair that's usually designed for a lot of rounding. And so it is, many of our chairs, like our bucket seats in our cars, they allow for so much rounding. So let's practice our squats just by coming to that chair pose that we practice pretty much every class. So as you draw the tops of the thighs back, as if you're coming down to sit in the chair. And usually you can use your hands here to kind of guide your way. But see about just taking your pelvis down to that point where you feel like, okay, my legs are getting a lot of work here. That's plenty for me. Usually in the pose, we lift our arms up, but that's really not necessary. Mostly we're just working on this power of the legs. See if you can take your tailbone back a little bit more as you just see if you can lower yourself very gracefully into that imaginary chair and press down to inhale and rise up. Exhale, release your hands. Let's come once again to all fours position to practice our squat pose via child's pose. So on your hands and knees, tuck your toes under. So you've got this nice dorsiflexion of the feet. So walk your hands forward with the hands wide apart. Draw your pelvis back toward your feet. And as you bring more weight toward your feet, a lot of times your heels want to draw away from each other. See if you can keep your heels hugging in. Keep a fullness of the back body. Just discover this connection. Today, we worked on the back side of our legs, the calf muscle nicely. We've worked to open the pelvis and a variety of things related to our squat position. And inhale, lift yourself up through downward facing dog. Just one more standing action here. As you lift yourself up, walk your feet in toward your hands. Place your hands to the low back and rise up. So that version of child's pose that we just did, if we worked more into the squat position, of course, we put a little bit more weight on the heels. But before we do that, let's get a little bit more flexibility in the Achilles tendon and that soleus muscle. So grab whatever you've got to take a, a stance on a roll towel or a blanket or mat. And as you do, step one foot on the rolled blanket. So you want to press down through the base of the toe onto the very tallest part of the rolled mat, and step your opposite foot forward and see if you can sneak the foot forward a little bit more. And we'll do the same practice that we started with. So first, bend your knee. So we come to virabhadrasana number 1, but a little bit different now that we've got that blanket roll, but we've worked this calf area enough so that there should be enough flexibility. Try to bend your knee while still keeping the heel down. Inhale, rise up. Feels kind of like you're not really doing the pose, but just do the actions and you are in the pose. Straighten the front leg, release your hands down, straighten both legs, keep both legs straight as you draw your heart down. And 2 more times. Inhale, lift yourself up, bend your front knee, keep your back heel rooted, take your arms up. Exhale, come toward a straight leg as you draw down. And one more. Inhale, bend your front knee, reach your arms up. Exhale, keeping that connection with the back heel, draw down. You stay connected. Now, openness in the pelvis is all about being rooted in your community, giving yourself this confidence to just kind of create like a steadfast commitment to your family, your friends. And inhale, lift yourself up. All right, let's come to the other side, whatever foot that is, opposite foot. So press that foot to the blanket roll, step your opposite foot forward, and slowly bend your knee while keeping your back heel rooted. Inhale, reach your arms up. So it's all about the soleus muscle right now, the calf muscle and the Achilles here. Keep your back heel rooted and exhale, straighten the back of the front leg and draw your heart forward as you keep this connection. Draw a little bit lower in the pose if you can. Now that we're going toward the end of our practice, you should be really open. Those 30 muscles that are affected in the pelvic area should be nice and open as you do this 2 more times. Bend your front knee, reach your arms up. Exhale, come to straight legs. Take your hands behind you. Keep on pulling the feet in toward the midline as you draw down. And one more time. Root down to rise up. Bend your front knee. Keep your back heel solid. Lift your arms up. And exhale. Slowly lower yourself down with both legs straight. And inhale, rise up. And exhale, step your back foot forward. So, one way to have this more fullness in the pelvic area through squats is to actually hold on to something when you go a little bit deeper. Sometimes even holding on to like doorknobs or something, you're just holding on and bringing yourself deeper into the squat. So hold on to something and allow that to just help you drop down a little bit lower than you might normally. So it's just protecting you as you hold on. See if you can take yourself a little bit lower in your squat. Allow your breath to help you out here. Pause And slowly, slowly, slowly lift yourself up. It's another thing you see people kind of launch themselves from there. It's like a one, two, three, go, lifting themselves up from seated position. And the more you can just kind of keep that slow, that ease in lifting up, the more you're working the leg muscles and toning your pelvic area. Lie on your back again. So we started on our back. Now that we've done all these squats, just check it out for yourselves. Take your knees toward your heart and just give yourself a really big hug. There's a lot of pelvic tuck. Your tailbone is lifting and it just moves side to side. And it's kind of a rounded back that you've got now for most of us. Now take your knees away from you with your palms right on your kneecaps. This time, go away from that pelvic tuck, obviously, so that you get this nice curve. Try to keep that and just kind of make circles with your knees. Draw your knees around, but still keep that nice lumbar curve. Keep that connection. When we've got this connection to the pelvic area, so often we have connection to the head, and sometimes we have connection to the heart, but it's hard for us to bring that much awareness all the way down to the pelvic area. And usually when that awareness comes, it comes because there's some back pain. But in this practice, it's all about taking your attention there. You can turn your circles the opposite direction, counterclockwise. And now, at first, when you're practicing squats, sometimes working one leg at a time makes a lot more sense. So as you place your feet back to the mat, keep one foot down, take the other knee up. So the one foot down is helping you to, keep the curve just slightly. Of course, the one lifted leg, as you pull it in, you just kind of notice that side kind of collapsing into your mat. But it's opening the pelvic area really nicely. Lift your foot up toward the sky and just keep on pulling in. This is like a half squat position that you're doing. Keep on pulling the knee in and take your hands a little bit closer to the ankle. Keep pulling in while the rooted opposite leg is doing its thing to try to keep the pelvic alignment as solid as possible. It's really working to keep that alignment, even though this is an asymmetric pose. So keep on taking your hands maybe a little bit higher so that you can show a little resistance, heel to hands, as you draw the knee down. You can slowly now release your foot to the mat and just pause here for a moment before taking the opposite leg in, hug in. And as you bring the knee in, again, you feel that side of the pelvis kind of going toward that tucking position. But the foot that's rooted down is really trying to keep the hold of that sense of symmetry, this connection to the earth. Take your foot up and inch your fingers a little bit closer to your foot. As you draw the knee down, imagine that your foot, your lifted foot, is trying to reach in the opposite direction. It's not the static pose. This is a half squat pose where you're really trying to work it a little bit. It's a nice pose to do like before you go to sleep or when you wake up in the morning as you're lying in bed, just to create some aliveness, some circulation in those 30 muscles that are somehow connected to the pelvic area. Walk your hands up a little bit more. Keep your grounded foot connected so solidly. And release. And we'll come back to the same pose we started in. So pull your knees in towards you. First, again, there's quite a bit of pelvic tuck, but now you have so much awareness to it. You can take your knees slightly away from you and still feel like the benefits of the pose without rounding the low back. Just move side to side again. And one of the muscles that is especially beneficial for the pelvic area that our culture tends to, I don't know, let go, I guess is the word, are the glutes. So as you lean over to one side, just see if you can just check in with the the belly of the buttocks muscles there. Just draw your awareness there. Come back to the center position and now draw over to the opposite side. And come back to the center position. Place your feet down to the mat. Just pause here. It's a rare yoga class that our pinnacle pose is child's pose, but as you dissect this pose, you kind of start to see its similarities to squats and recognize how it really has so much possibility for opening the pelvis. You find that connection. And as you straighten your legs, you keep that area really solid, really steadfast. That connection to the earth is unwavering. And as you allow the pelvis to be so heavy, the legs and the arms respond nicely. You come to Shavasana. The focal point of this pose, that's the most weight bearing, is the pelvis. So as you draw in, draw the breath in, see if you can just kind of expand yourself to bring your awareness of the breath flowing as if it's going all the way to the pelvis. And exhale long. Slow the breath down. Make the cycles of the in-breath and the out-breath so long. It really feeds the muscles that allow you to get more mobility in the pelvic area. You breathe in deep and you breathe out long. Breathe in deep. Breathe out long. Breathe in deep. Breathe out long. Breathe in deep. Breathe out long. Slowly bend your knees. Take your arms up over your head. Draw over to your side. Lift yourself up to come to a seated pose. Place your hands in front of your heart to honor our practice today and all this information that biomechanics gives us to make us understand this connection to that sense of connectedness. We bow. Namaste.